to go over how to grind a triangular blade using round stock, just like this rod. I've already knurled this stock here, and I've already die cammed the end of it here and gave it a triangular lines, or give it triangular lines on there, so you'll actually be able to see the fact that I'm following those. We're going to go ahead and grind this thing down and give it a triangular blade. It will end up looking something like this in the end. You can see here we got a flat edge, and a flat edge. Of course, knurled again. I also have a bit of threading here on the end. Sometimes I like to screw a skull on the end of these, but not always. Anyways, when it's all said and done, it should look something similar to this. I've started already here. I've got another blade already in here that has the knurling already on it. You can see that there. And I've put it into these aluminum jaws here. It's holding it nice and tight. I'm going to start grinding the blade. I've already got the lines marked into it, just like this one. So I think the next step here is for us to head over to the grinder and go ahead and get started. It's rather nippy in here, so I am wearing a long sleeve shirt here, and dust doesn't taste very good in your lungs, so it doesn't feel very good in your lungs, so of course I have a dust mask on. And I also usually get used to working under magnification because I'm also a gunsmith, so I have magnification here too. Alright, let's move over to the grinder. Here we go. Alright guys, today we are going to be showing you how to grind a triangular blade on a piece of bar stock or rod. It is a tutorial I haven't seen created, so I thought that I would create one for you guys and show you guys how I grind triangular blades, the techniques I use, and what it takes to end up with something like this in the end. You end up having a triangular blade just like that with 3 separate edges and of course a knurled handle. Alright, so what do you say we get started? Alright, now keep in mind this grinder is going to make a lot of noise, so there may be times where I fast forward until I'm done, and then I can show you what I've ground and how I'm going to be rotating and redoing each piece, how I line it all up, and how I end up doing the point in the end. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so the next step is unscrewing it, and we rotate the blade to the next part of the triangle. And what we do is we press it up against the belt here to find that flat surface if we've already created one. If we haven't already created one, we do our best to line up that flat surface, or we do our best to line up where we think that flat surface is going to be, judging by our tip here, those triangular lines that we created earlier, or those lines that we created earlier to give us a reference point. Here's our edge that we just made. Here's the one that we're going to go down deeper into. Okay, so let's get on the next one. Alright, now let's move on to the next part. The next part, you can see we've got our flat edge here, we got our flat edge here. The next part, you see this little thin area here, and that's obviously going to come together. The next part is going to be this flat surface right here. So what we do is we unscrew this, keeping it as close in as we can, and we rotate this little piggy so we get it pretty close to being lined up where we want it to be. Let's see here, take a look, and that is pretty doggone close to where we want it to be. What you want to do is look at it in there and see if it is centered. You'll want to see if where you've created your flat right there is going to be centered in between the two lines that you are creating right now. If it's centered and gives you that third flat, then you're pretty much good to go. But keep in mind, even if it's not perfect, you can still correct it as you go. So don't be discouraged if you mess something up initially, okay? It can always be corrected. Alright, next one. Here we go. So we've created 3 flats on this piece of bar stock. Now, I know you might be thinking, oh, it's not even. It's not looking perfect yet. It's not going to look perfect until you make it look perfect. So you see here, we've got those 3 edges. We've got 1, 2, and 3. Okay? You'll also notice that toward the end of that last one, I started to kind of dip down a little bit on this one. I started to kind of round that out. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I started to kind of round that out a little bit so I could start to create my tip. Let's go ahead and rotate this. This is a little push tool I use for when I'm grinding and I don't want to use my hand. I just use this and press it up against here, and that keeps it nice and flat while I'm going across. So let's rotate it again. And we just move forward to the next one. Hold it flat up against the belt. Tighten down our vise. Now, sometimes it's going to be hot. It's not going to feel very good on your hand. So I suggest, if that's the case, you go and you get yourself some water to actually dip it in. That would make a whole lot more sense. If I was smart, I'd probably have some out here right now. But, you know, lucky for you, I'm not all that smart. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, round 2. Here we go. Gonna grind the rest of this now. Another little tip, sometimes I like to put a drop or 2 of oil on the bottom here just to make it slide on the plate here a little bit easier. Some people like to do it, some people don't. It's a personal choice. Just a little tip. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can see here that the next edge is starting to take shape. Now, you'll notice that I have been doing that curve at the tip like we talked about. You can see here that little edge right there is starting to form right here. Just that little tiny edge right there is forming. You can see here where I've curved it downward right there and right here. But you can see these flat edges right here. We still have more to go on all these areas. This one is rather thin. This one is about the same thickness as this one. But this one here is a lot wider. So that means that what we have to do is we have to take this angled part right here and curve it a little more this way. So if we're like this on here, we got to curve it more like that. Not exactly like that, but I'm exaggerating it so you could see. But if you curve it a little more this way, then it will start to even out this side and this side, okay? It'll start to even all that out if you curve it more that way, okay? So let's go ahead and do some work on that next one underneath there. All right. Oops, got it upside down. Let's see here. Yeah. So the next one we're going to rotate to is that one there. All right. and here's the nice thick area we were just talking about. So what I'll do is I'll rotate this forward. Normally, like we talked about before, I would line this up exactly like that on there. But since we want to actually take more off that one side, instead of lining it up perfectly like that, I'm going to tip it back towards me just a tiny little bit, so I'm able to take off a little more on that one side. Alright, and I'll show you what it looks like once I actually hit it on the grinder. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Okay? Alright. Next round. Let's do it. Okay, you see here what I'm talking about? You see how this is not flat like this one or the other one. You can see it's a little bit kind of wonky, kind of rounded. And that's because I had turned it downward like we talked about. I had turned it down this way so I could start to thin out this other edge a little bit. So now if I hit it a few more times on here, it's going to flatten out just like these other sides. Alright, so let's get back to it. Flatten that sucker out. Here we go. Okay, it looks like we're gonna have to angle it in a little bit more to get it to even up a little bit. We're gonna have to angle this that way a little bit more, but that's okay. We anticipated this. This is not something we were not prepared for. So, like I said before, instead of leveling it out on the belt and on the platen, you'll want to angle it backwards toward me just a little bit so you can get it to even out just a tiny little bit. Now you'll only want to go in small increments when you're evening out these things. You do not want to do a whole bunch at once, because if you do, you're going to go too far and your blade will be uneven. I've had that happen to me before. You got to keep in mind, this stuff is handmade, so there's no guarantee it's going to be perfect. All right, just keep that kind of stuff in mind. All right, let's get back to it. here we go again. Now you'll notice that these edges, the high spots here, are starting to even up quite a bit now. Remember, the other one was way wider, and now it's not as wide as it was. These are all starting to look very, very even. Once you get them to the point where they're exactly or pretty close to being even, you can start to just grind down each flat part an equal number of passes. You just do 5 passes on one flat, 5 passes on one flat, 5 passes on one flat, and you just keep doing that until you get an equal amount, and then you just start to form the tip. Once you get the tip formed, you move on from there to basically making it exactly how you want it. Now, I have actually made these with sharp edges, with actual razor sharp edges. I mean, very, very, very sharp. But do I recommend it? No. A tool like this is not meant for cutting. This type of tool is meant for piercing more than anything else. So I would recommend that you keep it, basically you keep it for what it was designed for, not to make it into something it's not. Okay? So we are good on that side for a minute. Why don't we go ahead and rotate it to the next side. Alright, here we go. Do this a little bit. Rotate it forward. Line it up with the belt, nice and even here. There we go. That's good. Tighten it down. Make sure everything is flat. I also always make sure that this is flat along in here. These bars here, the bottom of the jaws, have to be flat on these underneath down here. So I always check and make sure that all that is flat as well. Alright, next one. Here we go. Alright. Moving on to the next side. I'll brush all that off so it moves a little easier. See here. Put that flat up against here. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is my neighbors banging on the walls. They're just wonderful people. Okay, let's see. There we go. Perfect. And again, you can see that this triangular area here is really starting to come together. How perfectly triangular that is. It's really starting to get to looking good. Alright, here we go. make a minor adjustment here. Looks like this side here. Yeah, looks like that side there. This one, a tiny bit forward. Sorry if you guys are hearing me talk to myself. It's pretty normal for me in here. I do tend to talk to myself a little bit. You know, it's some people say it's a sign of genius. Some people say it's a sign of insanity. I like to split the difference. Maybe genius insanity. I don't know. We'll see. Here we go. Well, I dropped one of my brushes, but I just grabbed another one, no big deal. Just brush all this off and do the next one. I've got to cool it down first. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but that was the sound of the steel cooling. You hear that big sound. It's the sound of the steel cooling. Let's see here. Looks like we're getting there. I have to concentrate a little bit more on the internal edge here, or the front part here. I got to concentrate a little more on that and get that to thin out a little bit more. But you can see it's coming along quite nicely. Now keep in mind, I'm sure there will be a point where I put all this into fast forward so you guys don't have to listen to me say every little thing, because that's just insane. Alright. Oop, there goes something. Let's see here. That. Oh. Back over here. Sorry about that, YouTube audience. Make sure we're still okay. Yeah, looks like we are. No biggie deal. Alright. Okay, so on to the next part. We've got it secured, so we are going to go ahead and start on the next edge. Here we go. Still evening everything up. Coming along quite nicely, as you can see. Everything is coming along well. Quite well. Let's see. So we rotate it forward just like usual. And boop. Just like that. Press down on that. Make sure it's flat. Make sure that's good. Alright. Man. Whew. Hopefully I have enough room in here. Didn't leave myself a whole lot of room in there. I think I'm going to unscrew that. Move it forward a tiny bit. Not the jaws, just the actual knife itself. Well, I shouldn't really call it a knife. It's not really a knife. It's more of a spike. Alright. I have to undo that. Once in a while you do. If that's the case, it's alright. You just hold that. Turn that. Tighten that down. Make sure everything is in place. Make sure it's all flat. Yep. Looks like everything is all flat and good to go. sure we're all flat here. Happy, happy. Yep. Okay. Use my awesome high-tech piece of duct tape here to hold this in place. It's high-tech, guys. Don't get caught using all that stuff. It's super, super high-tech. Alright, here we go. I had a feeling something wasn't right. See this right here? See there's a gap right under here? I had a feeling something wasn't right. So I loosen that. Tighten that back down. Make sure that we're still flat here. Loosen that real quick. Make sure we're still flat. Nice and flat there. Okay. Flat. Flat. Alright. Everybody's flat now. Alright, we're getting close now, guys. Now, some people, when they made these in World War II, some guys really like to go ahead and taper the entire blade, or they like to grind the entire blade so there was actually a bit of a sharp edge way back here and all the way up to here. Me personally, I prefer to just have about half of it be sharp, because I don't really see myself doing a whole lot of cutting back here, but you definitely want it sharp for the initial piercing up here of the tool. You know, whether it's for falconry or, you know, something World War II OSS SOE type stuff. Who knows? I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to make the tools. Okay, so let's move it along to the next edge. Here we go. And you'll also start to notice as you go, each of these edges, you'll start to see the wire edge kind of roll over them as you go. That's a good thing. That means that you'll be able to make it into a sharp edge eventually. Just keep in mind that that's okay. You can still even it up. It's not a problem, okay? Alright, so we're flat here, we're flat here. Go ahead and tighten this down. Alright, double check. Looks good. Looks good. Alright, tighten that down. Also towards the end, I like to dip it in water at the tip because it will get hot and sometimes the tip will burn. So if you dip it in water, that tends to help a little bit, especially if you're here in northern Arizona where I'm at, where it's really cold. The cold water tends to help. All right. Alright guys, I think we are on our last edge, or maybe the... Okay guys, we last left off and we were grinding the edges on this thing. I think we're just about at the end. So let's go ahead and hit this last edge here and see what we have. Okay, rotate it forward just like usual. Line it up onto the belt just like usual. Make sure this is flat. Give ourselves enough room here. Good, good, good. Flat, flat, flat. Make sure again that this is all flat, flat. Alright. Tighten it down. Okay. Now let's give it a good once over on the bottom. Looks good on the bottom. Looks good on the bottom. The key to getting these three symmetrical edges is the ability to keep this flat over and over and over again. Just like grinding any blade, you want to keep it flat often. As many times as you can, you want to keep it flat. Okay? Okay, here we go. I think this is the last edge we're doing, so let's do it. Okay guys, it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like we might just have something here. What I want to do first, though, there's some horizontal lines in this edge here, so I want to go back one real quick and clean that up. But after I do that, I should be good to go. Let's see here. Clean this up. Push that, push this. Make sure everything is straight. Tighten this down. I don't know if you'd be able to see it on the GoPro or not, but there's some little horizontal lines going along here from when I was testing the fit. So I got to get those out of there. You know, even your test platforms, you don't want to look too terribly bad. So even though this is just a demonstration, I would prefer to have it look good. So here we go. Dip it in water. Make sure it's nice and wet so it doesn't burn. Okay, guys, I think that we have something here. I think we might just have a triangular blade. The great thing about this setup also is that I can unscrew this and take this out of here if I want to, and I don't have to worry about trying to reset it up perfectly again. All I gotta do is stick it back in there, line it up with this, and I'm good to go again. So it's a really, really good setup if you need to use it for grinding triangular blades or anything else that needs to be repeatable over and over again. So we went through and ground our blade, ground all of our edges here. Of course, they're not perfectly symmetrical because, you know, I'm not a machine. I can't do perfect symmetry, but they are pretty doggone close. If you look at the edge, it's pretty doggone close. I mean, it's not perfect, like I said, but it is pretty doggone nice. If you guys want to know more, or if you guys have any questions about grinding triangular blades, feel free to ask me. You can just email me here on YouTube. Or if you want to see how to put a sharp edge on these, I don't even grind a secondary bevel onto them. I basically just hit this with a higher grit. I go through and hit this with a higher grit. I go from 120 to 220 to 600 or to 400, then to 600, and then I just hit it with a strop a few times, and that pretty much just gives me exactly what I want. But I repeat the exact same process over and over again, just with higher grit belts, following the same exact lines over and over again. So, like I said, it's not perfect, not by any means, but it is pretty doggone good for making it by hand. So, again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, and join us next time as we go deeper inside the Gunmetal Armory. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to check out our podcast on Prepper Broadcasting Network. Thank you.